Alright guys, that's it for part 1. Part 2 where we discuss numbers 4 through 1 is coming soon. Okay, it's been a while, but without further ado... Number 4, The Fate of the Furious. So if you listen to the podcast I did with Matthew Bailey and Ricardo Medina, you would have heard me say this. So for me, I enjoy this a little more than I enjoy 5, so I put it above 5.
Okay. Alright.
Below 6 and 7.
Okay, I can understand.
But I'm gonna have to take that back. Now that the movie has marinated a bit, I realized that the only reason I put it above 5 is, well, because this was the first time I saw a Fast and Furious movie in IMAX. My brain was overloaded with awesomeness. But The Fate of the Furious, after thinking about it, actually represents a step back for the series. It's a movie that shows that they're getting a bit formulaic and generic now. So while this one had a lot of great action and set pieces, a few things had me rolling my eyes. Like, why wouldn't Cypher just kill off Dom's team? They all know that the team is the only thing that could stop Dom.
I'll tell you when you're done. Your team is in play. Now meet Rhodes and follow my instructions.
And she already had the one thing that would keep Dom in line. So why not just kill them when she had the opportunity? We see Dom sneak away to get a message to someone, so couldn't he have gotten that person to get a message to his team as well? Why would Dom trust Deckard Shaw suddenly? The movie attempts to justify these strange character decisions.
What do you think I'd do it?
I saw that look you gave Cypher. I knew you wanted revenge.
But it falls flat. Also, while they kind of toned down Tyrese's more obnoxious behavior in the previous films, he started getting on my nerves once again in this one.
This is a gift, a real gift. I know what you're doing. I like your beard. You're Blanta, Black Santa.
Nigga the fuck?
And on the whole, the film feels like it was going on this heavy comedic road with everyone making jokes all the time.
Better get to digging.
Yes, if the films take themselves too seriously, we end up with Fast and Furious 4.
Denied!
But they can't get too absurd either.
Yeah!
So, this film is worth checking out for the great visuals and 2 awesome action sequences, both involving Jason Statham, as well as that amazing ending set piece involving a submarine and a tank. But I've spoken about this movie in great detail on both the Bears Beats and Bailey podcast and in my own review, so check those out if you want to hear more. I'm just going to reiterate that I don't think this was the worst Fast and Furious movie, but I definitely don't think it's the best. And that's why it comes in at number 4. Number 3, Fast 7. I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I think a lot of people overinflate how good this movie was, and I think it's mostly because of the tragedy surrounding it and how well they handled Paul Walker's death and the emotion involved within the movie itself. And while I agree with all of those things, I still don't think it's the best Fast and Furious movie. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Furious 7 does a lot of things right. That opening scene, which is flawed, but I'll get back to that, is a tracking shot, one take, or at least edited to look like it, boss of an opening. It's tonally different from opening on a street race, but still gets you excited for what's to come. We finally visit Abu Dhabi, which makes so much sense. It's the land of flashy sports cars. Why hadn't we gone there before? And we get a great set piece out of it. This film handles suspenseful scenes the best of all the films and had me on the edge of my seat several times wondering how the team would get out of a particular situation. But why wouldn't it? This movie was directed by James Wan, director of Saw and other popular horror movies. So those tension building scenes were right at home for Wan. What shocked me though is how well Wan handles the humor here. I got some genuine laughs from, you guessed it, Tyrese.
Happy birthday to you. To you. To you.
The best Fast and Furious character after Ja Rule. But Juan has a handle on these characters. He knows when to give Tyrese screen time and when to pull him back and let another character take a shot at him.
Double alpha. Man candy. You know what I'm saying?
Man, sit your candy ass down, man.
All the characters get adequate screen time, and making Tej the tech guy was one of the smartest moves in this franchise next to hiring Dwayne Johnson.
Daddy's gotta go to work.
But there's also a lot wrong with Furious 7.
That's the girl I heard so much about. Where you been at? Ghost girl? Need that charming bitch. These parties bore me to death.
Going back to the opening scene, after Deckard gives his speech, he says,
Take care of my brother.
"How, you idiot? You just destroyed the place and took out all of the security that were responsible for his safety." Then there's the problem of the plot itself. When the film introduced Deckard Shaw at the end of Fast 6, I thought that the plot of this film would revolve around Deckard hunting down and picking off the team one by one. Not necessarily killing them, but incapacitating them. The team would then have to move around to evade Deckard and eventually would have to band together to take him out. Because as we know, family is magic. Now, we do get a bit of that in the beginning of the film, but then they introduce this B-plot, where they have to hunt this MacGuffin, the God's Eye. In and of itself out of place, because remember, chronologically, Tokyo Drift takes place right before this film. So what? People were using flip phones and iPods in Tokyo Drift, but in the very next movie we have a piece of technology so powerful that it can track anyone, anywhere in the world.
It took us nearly a decade to find Osama bin Laden. With this, we'd have located him anywhere on the planet in a couple of hours.
Anyway, so it's the B-plot that has them globe-trotting, and then Shaw just shows up wherever they go like he's a Terminator or something. Then, when they finally get the God's Eye and find Shaw, they make the single dumbest decision ever: to carry it on the raid with them where it gets taken.
Oh, bitch, you got jacked, bitch.
You didn't need it. You already knew where he was. He was holed up.
Looks like he's holed up here.
He wasn't going anywhere. Don't take the advanced technology that could change the face of terrorist warfare forever with you. There are also some questionable sound effects and some really cheesy one-liners that not even Vin Diesel could make work.
Time to unleash the beast.
But the biggest letdown for me was the final set piece. There were just too many moving parts. You have Ramsey being shunted around different cars while a drone tries to blow her up, Brian trying to re-establish his satellite connection while fighting Tony Jaa, who is wasted in this movie by the way, and Dom fighting Shaw, all while a helicopter chases them. It's way too busy and it doesn't have the impact it should. However, you really can tell that all of the creativity went into the emotional ending the film has that hits you right in the feels and makes you forget any negative aspects of the narrative.
Stop, come on, come on. Stop, do you stop? Breathe into it, you breathe into it.
Okay, I am not going to cry.
It's never goodbye.
You can't make me cry. Fast and Furious 7.
I used to say I lived my life a quarter mile at a time. And I think that's why we were brothers. Because you did too.
Number 2, Fast 5. Fast 5 was a turning point for the series. Despite breaking box office records, Furious 4 is the lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes. So they had to find a way to revamp the series. And they did just that by doing the Avengers before the Avengers did it. Bringing back characters who were introduced in previous films and having them all work together. The original cast including Vince returns, Roman Pierce and Tej from 2, Han from Tokyo Drift, Giselle from 4, but they just don't throw them all in and hope for the best. everyone has a justifiable reason for being selected.
Most importantly, we're gonna need 2 precision drivers.
You know we got that.
And of course, the best decision they could have made except bringing back Ja Rule, adding the oiled up Samoan god himself, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as Agent Luke Hobbs to the cast. I mean, The Rock is just so extra. And he brought a shot of energy and charisma that the franchise desperately needed. And he gets all of the best laughs.
We don't ever let them get in the cars.
In fact, all the characters do so well. Even Dom is a more balanced version of his toned-down self from part 1 and his more emotional self from 4. Some character relationships come out of the blue, like why do Tej and Roman have this friendly rivalry all of a sudden after barely sharing any screen time in 2?
Oh, hell nah. I see they really scraped the bottom of the barrel, huh? I guess they did since your ass is here.
But despite it being abrupt, it works for the characters. It's nice having someone to take Roman down a peg when his ego gets out of hand.
Why me?
Cause you got the biggest mouth.
That's for damn sure.
At least he's not as hungry as in 2 because...
I'm hungry.
Never mind. Although this is a film where they start defying physics, there's some real tension and drama and weight to this from the get-go. The stakes definitely are higher. The family is cut off from all resources and the authorities are looking for them. And that brings a sense of urgency and desperation that we never got from a Fast and Furious movie before. And when Hobbs and Dom finally throw down, let's face it, that's what we all came here to see, right? It's a glorious explosion of testosterone and manliness that does not disappoint.
Incredible valor! Respectable muscles!
But perhaps most importantly, this is the first film where we get to see the importance of family coming together rather than just hearing about it. The theme of family is inserted throughout the film. Mia is pregnant, Brian is struggling whether or not he's going to be a good father. The team has to band together to solve a problem and eventually become more than a team, but a family.
Salute me, familia.
This film moves away from the street racing subgenre and they go all Ocean's 11 on us, but it works for the most part. It felt fresh and new. The action is definitely bolder and takes more risks. They even do this smart thing where they make us think they're going to shoehorn our street race into the film, and then they're like, nope, this ain't that kind of movie. But even when we do get a pseudo street race, it's done in such an endearing, charming way that you smile rather than rolling your eyes. The film isn't perfect though.
Got the print?
Wait. Okay, that's crazy.
Because while I understand the shift away from street racing to draw a bigger, more diverse audience, I felt like the movie completely abandoned the franchise's soul. I mean, the racing element is almost an afterthought, and I didn't really like that. The cars are a big part of this franchise, and there should have been more time dedicated to that aspect. My biggest problem with this one is that it had the worst villain of the entire franchise. Go ahead. How many of you can even remember the villain of this movie? I'll wait. He was just a boring, bland, cookie-cutter, evil tycoon, shady businessman. Nothing that made him feel like a real threat to the team, and he gets robbed and taken out like a bitch. And he's the reason why Fast 5 comes in at number 2. And the number 1 Fast and Furious movie is Fast and Furious 6. So I know a lot of people won't agree with me on this one. Both 7 and 5 did better critically, and I've seen many other critics saying that 5 was the best. In my opinion, however, 6 is the one that took everything 5 did and revved it up to 11.
As soon as you was questioning if we can outdo and top Fast 5,
I welcome y'all to the set. Fast 6. Fix your face.
They saw the reaction to the 5th film and said, how can we do this better?
I just felt like on this one, we go big or we go home.
And it may not have done everything better, but it did at least elevate it. And look, I'm not saying this film is a masterclass of modern cinema. I'm not. It's silly. There are plot conveniences that ensure heroes don't die before they're supposed to. There are parts that make you question the film's internal logic. Why does Brian have a chunk of the movie dedicated to him infiltrating a prison to interrogate Braga just to find out that the explosion didn't kill Letty? We already knew that.
But she survived. That girl is one tough bitch.
And why does Shaw keep Mia alive knowing the team is chasing her?
She's as good as dead if Shaw gets away on that plane.
She's the perfect leverage. There's dialogue full of exposition, cheesy moments,
That ain't a plane, that's a planet.
and ridiculous over-the-top action. Even the plot is just your standard facing off against evil versions of themselves plot, which I would have bashed, but this film is the most self-aware of all the Fast and Furious films, and that's what makes it so great. There are several scenes that do this, like this one.
But this is different. We're not dealing with cops, we're not dealing with drug dealers. It's a whole different level.
And then my absolute favorite.
I'm sitting there looking at these images. It's like we're hunting our evil twin. I mean, look at this black dude right here. Clearly that's me. We got a white Hobbs. Tess, that's like your mini-me, man. Hey, Brian, when did you do this photo shoot? I'm just playing, man.
They acknowledge the absurdity of them facing off against evil versions of themselves. They even reference the fact that the movies are beginning to feel like spy movies.
So now we got cars flying in the air on some 007 type shit?
The movie knows it's a silly, stupid action movie and it embraces it. The self-awareness enhances the film and lets the audience know that they're not taking themselves too seriously. And you see this reflected further in the actors' performances. Another thing Fast 6 did well is that it didn't completely abandon its racing roots, like I felt 5 did. It pays homage to it and says, we know we're an action franchise now, but we remember where we came from. So yeah, the street race does feel a little forced, but it's done in service of recalling the previous films and reinforcing the connection between Dom and Letty, so it's more than forgivable. It's good. The action sequences are really spectacular this time around, both those involving vehicles and the ones with the human actors. That Letty versus Riley fight is one of the best the series has seen. It's brutal and it doesn't seem choreographed. It really seems like Michelle Rodriguez and Gina Carano are throwing down because they both look convincingly imposing.
Can you slam me against that thing really hard?
There's a physicality to Michelle Rodriguez and Gina Carano that makes this fight believable. They tried the same thing in Fast 7 with Ronda Rousey and it did not have the same impact.
No, it didn't hurt at all.
And who can forget that tank sequence ending with Dom leaping off of his car and catching Letty in midair that made all the women in the theater turn to their man and scowl because he could never do something like that for them. And let's address the 747 in the room here.
That ain't a plane.
It's a plane.
Yes, that runway sequence is unrealistic as f***, but we're forgetting that in the last movie they attached a frickin' safe to 2 cars and drove around like it was nothing. So suspending your disbelief at that is okay, but a too long airport runway, now that's just crossing the line. Come on people, we're past the point of believability here. Let's just enjoy the mindless action, okay? But this movie had the best villain in the series, hands down. Owen motherfucking Shaw. No one's evil like Shaw, no one's crafty like Shaw, no one pulls off a heist with more skill than Shaw, but there's no villain here quite as deadly. Evil is his protocol. You can ask any Dom, Tej, or Lenny, and they'll tell you which bad guy almost killed them all. No one heists quite like Shaw, decimates quite like Shaw. No one's got a badass brother killer like Shaw.
As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating.
Why would a guy Owen Shaw? He's what Dom would have been if Dom didn't care about his team like a family.
A team is nothing but pieces you switch out until you get the job done.
And their dynamic whenever they face off is electric. There's great character interactions and development. We get the blossoming romance between Han and Giselle, Dom and Letty's thing, more Roman and Tej banter. But you want to know what really got me about this movie? That twist. Oh my god! I have figured out twists in far more intelligent movies than this. But when Shaw says,
Come in, babe.
and you're expecting Letty to do or say something, and then the camera focuses on the till then out of focus Gina Carano, and she says,
Of course.
I screamed! All these elements came together to make a Fast and Furious movie that, in my opinion, was the best Fast and Furious movie of them all. Well, that's all the time we have for today, and boy was it a long one. But this was the last Fast and Furious movie, so we won't have to do this again. What? It wasn't the last Fast and Furious movie? They have 2 more planned? And a spin-off? Well, see you at the cinema.